Imagine this, you're walking through the bustling streets of Manhattan and someone you met just once at a networking event 6 months ago stops you. "I've been thinking about our conversation," they say. "The way you handled that difficult question during the panel discussion, it's stuck with me ever since." This isn't luck or coincidence. This is the power of living according to ancient Stoic principles that make you genuinely unforgettable. There's something profoundly magnetic about a person who remains calm in chaos, who speaks with wisdom rather than impulse, and who carries themselves with quiet confidence. In our hyper-connected yet emotionally reactive world, these qualities have become increasingly rare and therefore increasingly powerful. When you master the art of Stoic living, you don't just survive modern life's pressures, you transform them into opportunities to demonstrate the kind of character that leaves lasting impressions. The ancient Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. While managing an empire and leading armies, he wrote in his personal journal, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This wasn't philosophical theory, this was practical wisdom from a man who commanded respect across continents. Similarly, Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become one of history's most influential teachers, proved that true freedom comes from mastering your inner world. And Seneca, advisor to emperors and successful businessman, demonstrated how Stoic principles create both personal peace and professional success. These weren't armchair philosophers. They were practitioners who understood that certain qualities make people unforgettable: the executive who stays composed during a corporate crisis, the friend who listens with genuine presence during your worst day, the colleague who makes decisions based on wisdom rather than fear. These individuals stand out because they've developed what the Stoics called the discipline of the mind, the ability to control their thoughts, emotions, and actions regardless of external circumstances. Today, we're exploring 10 specific Stoic skills that will transform not only how you experience life, but how others experience you. This isn't about manipulation or playing mind games. It's about developing genuine character traits that naturally draw people to you and keep you in their thoughts long after you've left the room. Whether you're navigating the competitive landscape of Silicon Valley, building relationships in Chicago's social scene, or pursuing your dreams in Los Angeles, these principles will serve as your foundation for creating meaningful, lasting impact. The beauty of Stoic philosophy lies in its practicality. Every principle we'll discuss today has been tested not in academic settings but in the real world, by leaders facing impossible decisions, individuals overcoming tremendous adversity, and ordinary people choosing to live extraordinary lives. When you embrace these teachings, you join a tradition spanning over 2 millennia of people who understood that true influence comes from inner strength, authentic character, and unwavering commitment to virtue. 1. Mastering self-control, the foundation of inner strength. Imagine you're sitting in a conference room in downtown Chicago and your colleague just took credit for your project in front of the entire executive team. Your heart is pounding, your face is flushing, and every instinct is screaming at you to call them out right there. The room is tense, everyone's watching, and they expect you to explode. But instead, you take a slow, deliberate breath. You pause, collect your thoughts, and respond with measured clarity. "I'm glad we can discuss the project's success. Perhaps we should schedule a follow-up meeting to review the detailed contributions from each team member." The room shifts. Your composure in that moment of potential chaos doesn't just defuse the situation, it elevates your reputation permanently. This is the power of self-control, the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy and the foundation upon which all other memorable qualities are built. Seneca, who served as advisor to Emperor Nero and witnessed firsthand the destructive power of unchecked emotions, wrote, "You have power over your anger if you choose to control it. And you have no power over it if you choose not to." This wasn't theoretical advice from someone living in an ivory tower. This came from a man who navigated one of history's most volatile political environments and survived by mastering his own reactions. Self-control isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending you don't feel frustrated, angry, or hurt. It's about recognizing that between every stimulus and your response lies a moment of choice, a sacred space where you can decide who you want to be. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his personal journal while leading military campaigns, reminded himself how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. This emperor understood that true power comes not from controlling others, but from controlling yourself. Consider Sarah, a marketing director in a fast-paced Seattle startup. During a particularly stressful product launch, her team was working 18-hour days, tempers were short, and mistakes were mounting. When a junior employee accidentally deleted crucial files, the natural response would have been panic and blame. Instead, Sarah took a moment to breathe, assessed the situation calmly, and said, "Mistakes happen under pressure. Let's focus on solutions." She organized a recovery plan, delegated tasks efficiently, and maintained an atmosphere of problem-solving rather than finger-pointing. Months later, when that junior employee was promoted to another company, they specifically mentioned Sarah's leadership during that crisis as their inspiration for staying in the tech industry. Her self-control in that moment created a lasting impression that influenced someone's entire career trajectory. The Stoics understood that self-control is fundamentally about choice. Epictetus, who knew intimately what it meant to have external circumstances beyond his control, taught his students, "No one can hurt you without your permission." This doesn't mean that difficult things won't happen to you, they will. It means that your response to those difficulties is always within your power. When you're stuck in Los Angeles traffic and running late for an important meeting, you can choose road rage, or you can choose to use the time productively, perhaps making phone calls or simply practicing patience. When your neighbor in Denver plays loud music at midnight, you can choose to storm over and create a confrontation, or you can choose to address the situation calmly the next day with a solution-oriented conversation. This principle extends into every area of modern life. In our age of social media outrage and instant reactions, the person who pauses before responding to a provocative post stands out dramatically. While others fire off angry comments they'll regret later, you can choose to either engage thoughtfully or not engage at all. This restraint doesn't make you weak, it makes you powerful. People notice the person who doesn't get pulled into every drama, who doesn't feel compelled to have the last word in every argument, who can disagree without being disagreeable. The practice of self-control is like developing physical strength. It requires consistent training. Start small. The next time someone cuts you off in traffic, notice your initial reaction but choose a different response. When you receive criticism at work, resist the urge to defend yourself immediately. Instead, thank the person for their feedback and tell them you'll consider their points. When you're tempted to check your phone during a conversation, recognize the impulse and choose to stay present instead. Marcus Aurelius provided a practical framework for this development. Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions. Instead of focusing on what irritates you about others, deliberately look for their positive traits. This mental discipline trains you to control not just your external reactions, but your internal thoughts as well. The compound effect of consistent self-control is remarkable. People begin to see you as someone who can be trusted in difficult situations. They start coming to you for advice because they know you won't react emotionally to their problems. You become the person others think of when they need steady leadership, calm counsel, or simply someone who won't add drama to an already stressful situation. This reputation for emotional stability becomes one of your most valuable assets, both personally and professionally. Remember, self-control isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Even Marcus Aurelius struggled with his temper and had to remind himself daily to choose patience over anger. The goal isn't to become emotionless, but to become emotionally intelligent, responding to life's challenges with wisdom rather than impulse. When you master this fundamental skill, you lay the groundwork for all the other qualities that make someone truly unforgettable. 2. Rational decision-making, the wisdom that commands respect. Picture yourself in a high-stakes boardroom in downtown Los Angeles where a major entertainment company is facing a crisis. A key project has fallen behind schedule, millions of dollars are at stake, and everyone around the table is in panic mode. Voices are raised, fingers are being pointed, and someone suggests scrapping the entire project to cut losses. The room buzzes with anxiety and rushed thinking. Then you speak up, "Before we make any irreversible decisions, let's take 15 minutes to analyze what we know, what we don't know, and what our real options are." You pull out a notepad, start listing facts versus assumptions, and guide the room through a systematic evaluation. By the end of that meeting, not only have you helped save the project, but everyone in that room remembers you as the person who brought clarity to chaos. This is the power of rational decision-making, a Stoic principle that transforms you from someone who merely reacts to circumstances into someone who shapes them through wisdom and careful thought. Marcus Aurelius, who made decisions that affected millions of people across the Roman Empire, understood this deeply when he wrote, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." Every choice you make stems from how you think about your situation, and when you think clearly, you act clearly. Rational decision-making isn't about being cold or calculating, it's about being intentional. It's the difference between choosing your response and having your response chosen for you by emotions, pressure, or circumstances. Seneca, who managed vast business enterprises while serving as a political advisor, taught that every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. This wisdom reminds us that every decision is both a conclusion and a starting point, which is why the quality of our decision-making process matters so profoundly. Consider Michael, a financial advisor in Manhattan who was approached by a desperate client during the 2020 market volatility. The client wanted to pull all their investments out of the stock market immediately, driven by fear and media hysteria. Instead of simply executing the transaction, Michael said, "I understand you're concerned. Let's spend 30 minutes looking at your specific situation, your timeline, and what the historical data tells us about market recoveries." He walked the client through their actual financial goals, showed them how their portfolio was designed to weather volatility, and helped them understand the long-term implications of panic selling versus staying the course. The client decided to maintain their investment strategy. A year later, they thanked Michael not just for saving them from a costly mistake, but for teaching them how to make better decisions under pressure. That client has since referred dozens of friends and family members, all specifically mentioning Michael's calm, rational approach during their moment of crisis. The Stoic approach to rational decision-making involves what Epictetus called the discipline of judgment, the practice of examining our thoughts and assumptions before acting on them. He taught his students to ask themselves, is this impression I'm having about the situation accurate? Am I responding to facts or to my interpretation of facts? What would happen if I'm wrong about this assumption? This mental discipline prevents us from making decisions based on incomplete information, emotional reactions, or social pressure. In our modern context, this skill becomes even more valuable. We're constantly bombarded with information, opinions, and urgent demands for immediate responses. The person who can pause, think clearly, and make well-reasoned decisions stands out dramatically. When your startup team in Austin is pressuring you to pivot the entire business model because a competitor launched a similar product, you can choose to panic and make hasty changes, or you can rationally analyze your unique value proposition. Assess the actual competitive threat and make strategic decisions based on data rather than fear. Marcus Aurelius provided a practical framework for this process. Confine yourself to the present. When facing a decision, focus on what you actually know right now, not on speculation about the future or regrets about the past. He also taught the importance of considering multiple perspectives. Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest. This metaphor reminds us that rational decision makers remain stable while others are tossed about by emotional waves. The process of rational decision-making involves several key steps that the Stoics practiced religiously. First, gather actual facts and distinguish them from opinions or assumptions. Second, consider the long-term consequences of each option, not just immediate outcomes. Third, examine your motivations. Are you making this choice from a place of wisdom or from fear, anger, or desire for approval? Fourth, consult your values. Does this decision align with who you want to be and what you stand for? Take Jennifer, a project manager in Denver who was offered a promotion that would require relocating to a different city and working significantly longer hours. Instead of accepting immediately out of ambition or declining immediately out of comfort, she spent 2 weeks systematically evaluating the decision. She listed the professional benefits and personal costs, discussed the opportunity with mentors, considered how it aligned with her 5-year goals, and honestly assessed whether the role matched her strengths and interests. She ultimately accepted the position, but her thoughtful approach to the decision impressed her current manager so much that he became a lifelong advocate for her career, helping her network and providing references for years to come. Rational decision-making also involves what Seneca called premeditatio malorum, considering what could go wrong and preparing for those possibilities. This isn't pessimism, it's practical wisdom. When you're considering a major purchase, a career change, or an important relationship decision, thinking through potential challenges helps you make more informed choices and prepares you to handle difficulties if they arise. The compound effect of consistently making rational decisions is extraordinary. People begin to seek your counsel because they trust your judgment. You become known as someone who doesn't get swept up in trends or panic, but who can see clearly through complexity and confusion. This reputation for wisdom becomes a magnet that draws opportunities, relationships, and respect. You become the person others think of when they face their own difficult decisions, and that kind of influence is truly unforgettable. 3. Resilience through adversity, turning obstacles into opportunities. It's 2:30 a.m. in Seattle, and David is staring at his laptop screen in disbelief. The email is clear: his entire department is being eliminated due to company restructuring. After 12 years with the tech company, building relationships, developing expertise, and climbing the corporate ladder, he's suddenly unemployed. His first instinct is devastation: the mortgage payments, his daughter's college tuition, the comfortable life he's built. But then he remembers something his mentor once told him about the Stoic approach to adversity. He closes the laptop, takes a deep breath, and says to himself, "This isn't the end of my story. This is the beginning of a new chapter." 6 months later, David launches his own consulting firm, leveraging the expertise he gained over those 12 years. Within 2 years, his business is thriving, he's working with clients he never could have reached as an employee, and he's earning more than he ever did in corporate life. When former colleagues ask how he bounced back so quickly, they remember his response to that devastating news, and they think of him as someone who doesn't just survive setbacks but transforms them into comebacks. This is the essence of Stoic resilience, not just the ability to endure hardship, but the wisdom to extract value from every difficult experience. Seneca, who faced political exile, financial ruin, and eventually execution, understood this principle intimately when he wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." He wasn't speaking theoretically, he was sharing wisdom earned through personal suffering and transformation. The Stoic concept of resilience goes far beyond simple toughness or the ability to grit your teeth and bear it. It's based on a fundamental reframe of what adversity means in your life. Marcus Aurelius, who dealt with plagues, wars, and political betrayals while leading the Roman Empire, captured this perfectly. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This isn't motivational rhetoric, it's a practical philosophy that transforms every obstacle into a stepping stone. Consider Maria, a restaurant owner in Miami whose business was devastated during the pandemic. When lockdowns forced her to close her dining room, she could have simply waited for restrictions to lift and hoped for the best. Instead, she saw the obstacle as an opportunity to innovate. She pivoted to a meal kit delivery service, teaching customers how to recreate her signature dishes at home. She started virtual cooking classes, building a community around her brand that extended far beyond her physical location. When restaurants reopened, she didn't just survive, she had created multiple revenue streams and a loyal customer base that thought of her not just as a restaurant owner, but as a culinary educator and community builder. Her resilience during the crisis became the foundation for unprecedented growth. The Stoics taught that resilience begins with proper perspective on the nature of adversity itself. Epictetus, who understood suffering intimately as a former slave, taught his students, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This principle doesn't minimize the reality of pain or difficulty, it empowers you to maintain agency even in the most challenging circumstances. When you lose a job, end a relationship, or face a health crisis, you still retain the power to choose your response, and that choice determines whether the experience diminishes you or develops you. The practical application of Stoic resilience involves what philosophers call the discipline of desire, learning to want what happens rather than demanding that what you want must happen. This doesn't mean becoming passive or accepting injustice, but rather focusing your energy on what you can control while accepting what you cannot. When James, a startup founder in Austin, watched his first company fail after 2 years of 18-hour days and personal sacrifice, he had a choice. He could become bitter about the unfairness of entrepreneurship, or he could extract every lesson from the experience and apply it to his next venture. He chose the latter, conducting detailed postmortems on every decision, identifying patterns in his mistakes, and building relationships with the investors and customers who had supported him. His second company succeeded partly because of what he learned from his first failure, and investors specifically cited his mature response to adversity as a reason they backed him. Seneca provided a practical framework for building resilience through what he called premeditatio malorum, the practice of mentally rehearsing potential difficulties. This isn't pessimism but preparation. By imagining how you would handle job loss, relationship problems, or health issues before they occur, you build mental resilience and reduce the shock when challenges actually arise. He wrote, "What is grief but an opinion?" suggesting that much of our suffering comes not from events themselves but from our judgments about those events. The compound effect of developing resilience extends far beyond personal benefit. People are naturally drawn to those who handle adversity with grace and wisdom. When colleagues see you respond to setbacks with composure and strategic thinking rather than panic and blame, they remember you as someone they can count on during difficult times. This reputation becomes invaluable in both personal and professional relationships. Consider the story of Lisa, a marketing executive in Chicago who was passed over for a promotion she had worked toward for 3 years. Instead of becoming resentful or looking for another job immediately, she asked for specific feedback about what she needed to develop. She used the disappointment as motivation to strengthen her weak areas, sought out additional training, and volunteered for challenging projects that would build the skills she lacked. When the next promotion opportunity arose 18 months later, she not only got the position but earned the respect of the entire leadership team for her mature response to the earlier setback. Her resilience became part of her professional brand, and she's now known throughout her industry as someone who turns challenges into growth opportunities. The Stoics understood that resilience isn't just about recovering from adversity, it's about being transformed by it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." When life treats you unfairly, the most powerful response is to become stronger, wiser, and more compassionate because of the experience. This approach doesn't just help you survive difficult times, it helps you emerge from them as a more capable and memorable person than you were before. 4. Mindful presence, the gift of undivided attention. You're sitting in a crowded coffee shop in Boston's Back Bay, and your friend Sarah is telling you about the most difficult period of her life, her mother's recent cancer diagnosis. Around you, the usual urban chaos unfolds, baristas calling out orders, students typing frantically on laptops, business people taking loud phone calls. But you're not distracted by any of it. Your phone is face down on the table, your eyes are focused on Sarah's face, and you're listening not just to her words but to the emotions behind them. You notice the slight tremor in her voice when she mentions the word chemotherapy, the way her hands fidget with her coffee cup when she talks about feeling helpless. When she finishes speaking, you don't immediately offer solutions or share a similar story from your own life. Instead, you simply say, "This sounds incredibly scary. Tell me more about what's been the hardest part for you." 6 months later, when Sarah's mother is in remission, she tells you that conversation was a turning point, not because you solved anything, but because you made her feel truly heard during her darkest moment. She thinks of you as the person who showed up completely when it mattered most. This is the transformative power of mindful presence, the increasingly rare ability to be fully engaged with another person in our hyper-connected, perpetually distracted world. Marcus Aurelius, despite managing the complexities of an empire, understood this principle deeply when he wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." This wasn't just philosophical poetry, it was a practical reminder to stay present to the gift of each moment and each human connection. The Stoic practice of mindful presence begins with what Epictetus called prosoke, continuous attention to the present moment. He taught his students, keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern, and be clear that what belongs to others is their business and none of yours. In the context of presence, this means focusing completely on the person in front of you rather than letting your mind wander to your own agenda, your next meeting, or your phone notifications. Consider Robert, a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley who built his reputation not just on his investment acumen, but on his legendary presence during meetings. While other investors multitask, checking emails, taking calls, thinking about their next appointment, Robert gives entrepreneurs his complete attention. He puts his phone in a drawer, maintains eye contact, asks follow-up questions that show he's truly listening, and creates space for entrepreneurs to share not just their business plans but their deeper motivations and concerns. Entrepreneurs consistently mention that meeting with Robert feels different from other investor meetings. They leave feeling heard and understood regardless of whether he invests. This reputation for presence has made him the first call for many successful founders, and his deal flow is legendary in the industry. His mindful attention during 30-minute meetings has created relationships that span decades. The practice of mindful presence requires deliberate cultivation in our age of constant distraction. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day and has an attention span that's shorter than a goldfish. In this environment, the person who can offer sustained, focused attention stands out dramatically. Seneca understood this challenge even in ancient Rome, writing, "Nothing, to my way of thinking, is a better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company." If we can't be present with ourselves, how can we be truly present with others? The Stoic approach to presence involves several practical disciplines. First, the practice of negative visualization. Regularly imagining the loss of people important to you helps you appreciate their presence more fully when you're with them. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." This awareness of impermanence makes every conversation more precious and worthy of your full attention. Take Jennifer, a pediatric nurse in Denver who works in one of the city's busiest children's hospitals. Despite the chaos of her environment, alarms beeping, doctors rushing between rooms, families in crisis, she's known for her ability to be completely present with each child and family she encounters. When she enters a room, she sits down to match the child's eye level, speaks directly to them rather than over them to their parents, and gives them her undivided attention for whatever time she has available. Parents consistently request Jennifer specifically, and many have written letters to hospital administration praising not her technical skills, though those are excellent, but her presence. One parent wrote, "In the scariest moment of our lives, Jennifer made us feel like we were the only family that mattered." Her mindful presence in brief interactions creates lasting memories that families carry with them long after their hospital stay ends. The discipline of presence also involves what the Stoics called the view from above, stepping back to see each interaction in its larger context. When you're having coffee with a friend, you're not just passing time, you're participating in one of the fundamental human experiences that gives life meaning. When you're listening to a colleague's concerns about a project, you're not just gathering information, you're building the trust and understanding that makes effective collaboration possible. Marcus Aurelius practiced a daily exercise of gratitude that enhanced his presence. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, "The people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They're like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own." This practice helped him approach each person with curiosity and compassion rather than judgment and distraction. The compound effect of cultivating mindful presence is remarkable. People begin to seek you out not because you have all the answers, but because you create space for them to discover their own answers. You become known as someone who truly listens, who makes others feel valued and understood. In professional settings, this translates to stronger relationships, better collaboration, and increased influence. In personal relationships, it creates deeper intimacy and trust. The irony of mindful presence is that by focusing completely on others, you become more memorable to them. When someone feels truly seen and heard by you, that experience becomes part of how they think about you. You become associated with the feeling of being understood, valued, and important, and that's a gift people never forget. 5. Emotional regulation. Navigating life storms with grace. You're in the middle of what should be a routine team meeting in your Manhattan office when your colleague Alex blindsides you. In front of the entire department, they criticize a project you've been leading for months, questioning your competence and suggesting that perhaps someone else should take over. Your heart rate spikes, your face flushes with embarrassment and anger, and every instinct screams at you to defend yourself aggressively. The room falls silent, everyone's eyes are on you, and you can feel the tension crackling in the air. But instead of exploding or retreating, you take a slow, deliberate breath. You pause for what feels like an eternity but is actually just 3 seconds. Then you respond with measured composure. "I appreciate your concerns, Alex. Let's schedule time after this meeting to discuss the specific issues you've identified so we can address them constructively." The room shifts from tension to respect. Later, colleagues approach you privately to commend your professionalism, and your manager specifically mentions your grace under pressure during your next performance review. That moment of emotional regulation didn't just defuse a potentially damaging situation. It enhanced your reputation as a leader who can handle conflict with dignity. This is the power of emotional regulation, not the suppression of feelings, but the skillful management of how those feelings express themselves in your words and actions. Marcus Aurelius, who faced betrayals, military defeats, and personal losses while leading an empire, understood this mastery when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't theoretical philosophy, but practical wisdom forged in the crucible of real-world leadership challenges. Emotional regulation in Stoic philosophy begins with a fundamental understanding of what emotions actually are. Epictetus taught that emotions are not automatic responses to external events, but rather the result of our judgments about those events. He famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This insight is revolutionary because it means that between every trigger and your response lies a moment of choice, a space where you can decide who you want to be in that moment. Consider Maria, an emergency room physician in Chicago who deals with life and death situations daily. During one particularly challenging shift, she was treating a car accident victim when the patient's family arrived and, overwhelmed by grief and fear, began screaming at her, accusing her of not working fast enough and questioning her competence. The natural human response would be defensiveness or counter-anger, especially when you're doing everything possible to save someone's life. Instead, Maria recognized their behavior as a manifestation of terror and helplessness. She paused her medical work for just a moment, looked the family member in the eye, and said calmly, "I understand you're scared. I'm going to do everything I can for your loved one. Right now, the best way you can help is to let me focus on their care." Her emotional regulation in that moment not only allowed her to continue providing optimal medical care, but also helped the family process their emotions more constructively. Years later, that family still sends her holiday cards, and they've referred numerous friends to the hospital specifically because of how she handled that crisis. The Stoic approach to emotional regulation involves what they called the discipline of action, the practice of choosing your responses rather than being chosen by your impulses. Seneca, who navigated the treacherous political waters of imperial Rome, developed practical techniques for this discipline. He wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end," reminding us that each emotional challenge is an opportunity to practice and strengthen our regulatory skills. One of the most powerful Stoic techniques for emotional regulation is the practice of objective representation, describing situations to yourself in neutral, factual terms rather than emotionally charged language. Instead of thinking, "This person is attacking me and trying to humiliate me," you might think, "This person is expressing disagreement with my approach in a public setting." This reframing doesn't minimize the challenge but removes the emotional amplification that makes wise responses more difficult. Take David, a startup founder in Austin whose company was going through a difficult funding round. During a crucial investor meeting, one potential investor aggressively questioned every aspect of the business model, using language that felt personally attacking. David's initial internal response was anger and defensiveness. This investor seemed to be trying to embarrass him in front of the other potential backers. But David had been practicing Stoic emotional regulation, so he took a different approach. He mentally reframed the situation. This investor is doing their due diligence thoroughly and wants to understand our risk factors. This perspective shift allowed him to respond to each concern with detailed, thoughtful answers rather than defensive reactions. Not only did that investor eventually fund the company, but they later told David that his composure under pressure was one of the key factors in their investment decision. Marcus Aurelius provided a practical framework for emotional regulation through his concept of the inner citadel. The idea that your mind is a fortress that external events cannot breach without your permission. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present," meaning that most emotional disturbance comes from dwelling on past grievances or future anxieties rather than dealing with present realities. When you're feeling overwhelmed by emotion, ask yourself, what exactly is happening right now? In this moment, often, you'll find that the present moment is manageable. It's your thoughts about past or future that are creating the emotional storm. The practice of emotional regulation also involves what Seneca called the discipline of assent, carefully examining your initial emotional reactions before accepting them as accurate assessments of reality. When someone cuts you off in Los Angeles traffic, your immediate emotional response might be, "That person is a selfish jerk who doesn't respect other drivers." But if you pause and examine this reaction, you might realize you don't actually know anything about that person's circumstances. Maybe they're rushing to the hospital for an emergency, or maybe they simply didn't see you. This doesn't excuse poor driving, but it prevents you from carrying unnecessary anger and stress. The compound effect of consistent emotional regulation is extraordinary. People begin to see you as a stabilizing force in chaotic situations. You become the person others turn to during crises because they know you won't add emotional fuel to already difficult fires. This reputation for emotional intelligence becomes one of your most valuable professional and personal assets, creating opportunities for leadership and deeper relationships that wouldn't be available to someone known for emotional volatility. 6. Authentic integrity. Living your values consistently. It's Friday evening in downtown Dallas, and the quarterly sales numbers have just come in. Your team has fallen short of their targets by a significant margin, and there's tremendous pressure from upper management to find creative ways to make the numbers look better before Monday's board presentation. Your colleagues are suggesting various accounting maneuvers, technically legal but ethically questionable, that could shift revenue recognition and paint a rosier picture. The room buzzes with rationalizations. Everyone does this. It's just timing differences. We'll make it up next quarter. As the department head, you have the authority to approve these adjustments, and doing so would protect your team's bonuses and your own reputation with the board. But something inside you knows this isn't right. You stand up and say, "I understand the pressure we're all feeling, but we're going to report the actual numbers. We'll focus our energy on developing a realistic recovery plan rather than manipulating the data." The room falls silent. Some colleagues look relieved. Others appear frustrated. but everyone understands where you stand. 6 months later, when the company faces a major audit and several departments are investigated for questionable practices, your department emerges with its reputation intact. More importantly, 3 of your team members have since told you that your decision that night changed how they think about business ethics, and they've modeled their own leadership on the integrity you demonstrated under pressure. This is the essence of authentic integrity, the alignment between your deepest values and your daily actions, especially when no one is watching or when maintaining that alignment comes at a personal cost. Marcus Aurelius, who held ultimate power in the Roman Empire and could have acted with impunity, chose instead to hold himself to the highest ethical standards. He wrote in his personal journal, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy," understanding that integrity is not about external validation but about internal consistency with your principles. Authentic integrity in Stoic philosophy goes far beyond simply following rules or avoiding obviously wrong behavior. It's about what Seneca called living according to nature, aligning your actions with your highest understanding of virtue and wisdom. Seneca, who accumulated great wealth while serving as advisor to Emperor Nero, constantly struggled with the tension between worldly success and philosophical principles. He wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end," recognizing that choosing integrity often means ending comfortable compromises and beginning more challenging but authentic paths. Consider Jennifer, a software engineer in Seattle who discovered that her company was collecting user data in ways that violated their published privacy policy. The data collection wasn't illegal, and it was generating significant revenue that funded her team's salaries and the company's growth. Speaking up would likely result in policy changes that could hurt the company's competitiveness and potentially cost jobs. Jennifer spent sleepless nights wrestling with the decision, knowing that staying silent would be easier, but wouldn't align with her values about user privacy and corporate transparency. She ultimately decided to raise her concerns with management, proposing alternative approaches that would maintain user trust while still supporting business objectives. Initially, her managers were resistant, but Jennifer's thorough research and principled approach eventually convinced them to modify their practices. When the company later went public, their transparent data practices became a competitive advantage, and Jennifer was promoted to lead the privacy engineering team. More significantly, she became known throughout the tech industry as someone who stands up for user rights, leading to speaking opportunities and board positions that have defined her career. The Stoic understanding of integrity is rooted in what they called the unity of the virtues. The idea that wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance are interconnected and must be practiced together. You cannot be truly courageous without also being just, or truly wise without also being temperate. This means that authentic integrity requires consistency across all areas of your life, not just in the dramatic moments, but in the small daily choices that shape your character. Epictetus, who understood oppression intimately as a former slave, taught that true freedom comes from living according to your principles regardless of external circumstances. He said, "No one can hurt you without your permission," meaning that compromising your integrity hurts you more than any external consequence of maintaining it. This perspective transforms integrity from a burden into a source of inner strength and freedom. Take Michael, a marketing director in Phoenix who was asked to promote a product he knew had significant quality issues that the company was planning to address in future versions. The marketing campaign would technically be truthful. The product did work as advertised, but Michael knew that customers would be disappointed by problems that weren't disclosed. He could have simply executed the campaign as requested, protecting his job and meeting his quarterly objectives. Instead, he proposed a modified approach that acknowledged the product's current limitations while highlighting the company's commitment to continuous improvement. His manager initially resisted this transparency, arguing that it would hurt sales. Michael persisted, presenting data showing that companies with transparent marketing actually build stronger customer loyalty over time. The campaign proceeded with Michael's modifications, and while initial sales were slightly lower than projected, customer satisfaction scores were significantly higher, leading to increased referrals and repeat purchases. Michael's integrity in that situation established him as someone who thinks long-term and puts customer relationships above short-term metrics, leading to his promotion to VP of Marketing 2 years later. The practice of authentic integrity requires what Marcus Aurelius called the discipline of desire, wanting what is right rather than what is easy or immediately profitable. This doesn't mean being naive about practical realities, but it means starting from a foundation of principles and then finding creative ways to honor those principles while still achieving legitimate objectives. Seneca provided practical guidance for developing integrity through daily self-examination. He wrote, "Every day and every hour ought to be searched and tested," suggesting that integrity is built through consistent attention to small choices rather than waiting for major moral crises. When you're tempted to exaggerate your accomplishments on a resume, speak negatively about a colleague behind their back, or take credit for someone else's work, these seemingly minor moments are actually opportunities to strengthen or weaken your integrity. The compound effect of consistent integrity is profound. People begin to trust you with their most important concerns because they know you won't compromise their interests for your own advantage. You become known as someone whose word can be relied upon, whose recommendations are genuinely in others' best interests, and whose character remains consistent regardless of circumstances. This reputation becomes one of your most valuable assets, opening doors and creating opportunities that would never be available to someone whose integrity is questionable. Moreover, authentic integrity creates internal peace and confidence. When your actions align with your values, you don't have to remember what you said to whom or worry about your various personas being discovered. You can be the same person in every context, which eliminates the exhausting work of maintaining multiple identities and allows you to focus your energy on creating value rather than managing impressions. 7. Purposeful action, moving with intention and direction. Imagine you're at a bustling networking event in San Francisco surrounded by industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Conversations flow freely, but amidst the excitement, you notice a common theme. Many people are talking about their ambitions, their dreams, and their plans for the future. Yet, as you listen, it becomes clear that most are simply reacting to the pressures of their environments, responding to trends, or chasing after the latest buzzwords rather than articulating clear, meaningful paths of action. Then you meet someone who stands out, a fellow entrepreneur who speaks deliberately about their mission, their values, and the specific steps they are taking to achieve their goals. They share how they've built their company around a commitment to sustainability and social responsibility, explaining not just what they hope to achieve, but how every action they take aligns with their broader vision. You leave the conversation inspired, thinking that's the kind of purposeful action I want to embody. This is the power of purposeful action, the ability to move through life with intention, clarity, and a strong sense of direction. Marcus Aurelius, who managed the complexities of an empire while striving to live a virtuous life, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This principle emphasizes that while we may not control our circumstances, we can control our responses and actions, ensuring they align with our core values and goals. In Stoic philosophy, purposeful action is rooted in the understanding that our lives are defined not by our circumstances but by our choices. Seneca, who faced political exile and immense pressure, famously said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." This perspective requires us to take deliberate steps toward our goals rather than waiting passively for opportunities to arise. Purposeful action is about preparing ourselves through knowledge, skills, and ethics, ensuring that when the right moment arrives, we are ready to seize it. Consider Emily, a high school teacher in Chicago who felt a calling to improve her school's curriculum. Instead of simply complaining about the lack of resources or the rigid educational framework, she took purposeful action. Emily spent her evenings researching innovative teaching methods, attending workshops, and connecting with educators across the country who had successfully implemented change. With a clear vision of what she wanted to accomplish, she approached her school administration with a well-researched proposal for a new program that integrated social-emotional learning into the existing curriculum. Her passion and preparation impressed the school board, and they approved her initiative. Over the next year, Emily not only transformed her classroom but also inspired colleagues to adopt similar practices, significantly improving student engagement and emotional well-being. Her purposeful actions created a ripple effect that positively impacted the entire school community, demonstrating the profound influence one individual can have when they act with intention. The Stoic concept of purpose aligns closely with what Aristotle called telos, or the ultimate aim of life. Aristotle believed that every action should lead toward a greater purpose, one that contributes to the good of the community and the betterment of oneself. This is not merely about personal ambition, it's about recognizing how our actions fit into a larger tapestry of life and the impact they have on others. Purposeful action requires us to ask ourselves, what is my ultimate aim, and how do my daily choices align with that vision? Take John, a software developer in New York City who was frustrated by the tech industry's relentless focus on profit over people. Instead of joining the chorus of complaints, he decided to create a non-profit organization that teaches coding skills to underprivileged youth. He spent weekends volunteering at community centers, developing curricula that not only taught technical skills but also emphasized critical thinking and problem solving. John's purposeful action transformed his frustration into a meaningful mission, impacting hundreds of young lives. His nonprofit gained recognition, and he was invited to speak at conferences about his approach to merging technology with social responsibility. John's story illustrates that purposeful action can transcend personal gain and contribute to the greater good. The Stoic approach to purposeful action emphasizes the importance of self-reflection and self-awareness. Epictetus advised his students to regularly examine their actions and motivations, asking, "What is it that I truly desire? What I want to achieve?" This practice encourages individuals to align their actions with their values, ensuring they are not simply reacting to external pressures but actively choosing paths that reflect their true selves. Consider Sarah, a marketing executive in Austin who felt unfulfilled in her role despite financial success. She realized she was working long hours on projects that didn't align with her passion for environmental sustainability. After much reflection, Sarah decided to leave her corporate job and pursue a career in sustainable marketing. She took a leap of faith, enrolling in courses, networking with industry leaders, and volunteering with eco-friendly organizations. Her purposeful actions led her to a position with a company dedicated to green initiatives where her work aligned with her values. Sarah's journey illustrates how purposeful action can lead to profound personal fulfillment and a career that resonates with one's ideals. The practice of purposeful action is enhanced through what the Stoics termed premeditatio bonorum, the practice of visualizing the good outcomes of our efforts. This technique not only helps clarify our goals but also reinforces our commitment to the actions that will lead us there. By visualizing the positive impact of our purposeful actions, we cultivate motivation and resilience even in the face of obstacles. The compound effect of living with purposeful action is transformative. When you consistently align your actions with your values and long-term goals, you create a life that others admire. People begin to see you as a leader, someone who doesn't just talk about change but actively works toward it. Your reputation for purposeful action becomes a powerful magnet for opportunities. People want to work with you, collaborate with you, and support your initiatives because they recognize your commitment to making a difference. Moreover, purposeful action fosters a sense of accountability. When your actions are guided by a clear purpose, you're less likely to succumb to distractions or engage in behaviors that detract from your goals. You become the architect of your life, building it one intentional choice at a time. As Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. This call to action is an invitation to embody your values through your deeds, transforming abstract ideals into tangible realities. In summary, purposeful action is the embodiment of Stoic principles in action. It invites us to move through life with intention, clarity, and a commitment to our values. Whether in our professional pursuits, personal relationships, or community engagements, purposeful action allows us to create meaningful change, not just for ourselves but for those around us. By embracing this principle, we become not just participants in life but active creators of our destinies. 8. Humble confidence, strength without arrogance. Imagine you're at a conference in Los Angeles, surrounded by industry experts discussing groundbreaking innovations. As the panel begins, one speaker stands out not because of their flashy presentation or grandiose claims, but due to their genuine humility and quiet confidence. When asked about their success, they don't boast about their achievements. Instead, they acknowledge the support of their team, the lessons learned from failures, and the importance of continuous learning. They say, "Every success I've had is built on the shoulders of those who came before me and the mistakes I've learned from along the way." As they speak, you can feel the respect radiating from the audience. This is the power of humble confidence, the ability to recognize your strengths without inflating your ego, to act with assurance while remaining grounded in reality. In Stoic philosophy, humble confidence is not just a desirable trait, it's a foundational principle for living a virtuous and impactful life. Marcus Aurelius, who wielded immense power as Emperor of Rome, often reflected on the transient nature of success and the importance of humility. He wrote, "When you have assumed these names, good, modest, true, rational, a man of equanimity, then you may be proud." This statement emphasizes that true pride comes not from external accolades, but from embodying the virtues that define your character. Humble confidence is rooted in self-awareness, the understanding of your capabilities and limitations without the need for external validation. Epictetus taught that it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. This wisdom encourages us to approach life with a learner's mindset, recognizing that confidence should stem from knowledge and experience rather than arrogance or entitlement. Consider Rachel, a project manager in Chicago who recently led a successful initiative to revamp her company's marketing strategy. Instead of taking full credit for the project's success, Rachel held a team celebration where she publicly acknowledged each member's contributions. She spoke about how their diverse skills and perspectives shaped the project and how she learned from the challenges they faced together. Her humility fostered a culture of collaboration and trust within her team, leading to increased morale and productivity in subsequent projects. Rachel's humble confidence became a hallmark of her leadership style, demonstrating that true strength lies in uplifting others rather than seeking the spotlight for oneself. The Stoic principle of humble confidence also involves recognizing that no one achieves success in isolation. Seneca, who navigated the complexities of Roman politics and philosophy, understood this well. He wrote, "We are all made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth." This quote highlights the importance of interdependence and the idea that our achievements are often the result of collaborative efforts. When you embrace humble confidence, you acknowledge the contributions of others and foster an environment where teamwork thrives. Imagine James, a senior executive at a tech startup in San Francisco. He consistently emphasizes the importance of mentorship and collaboration within his organization. When new employees join, he makes it a point to introduce them to seasoned team members and encourage knowledge sharing. During meetings, he actively seeks input from everyone, ensuring that all voices are heard regardless of their level of experience. James's humility creates an atmosphere of psychological safety where team members feel empowered to share their ideas without fear of judgment. As a result, innovation flourishes and the company has been recognized as one of the best places to work in the industry. James's humble confidence becomes a driving force behind the company's success, demonstrating that leadership is about lifting others rather than showcasing one's own achievements. The practice of humble confidence requires a commitment to continuous self-improvement and a willingness to learn from feedback. Epictetus taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. This principle invites us to approach conversations with curiosity and openness, valuing the insights of others rather than dominating discussions with our opinions. When you listen more than you speak, you gain a deeper understanding of the perspectives around you, which enhances your ability to make informed decisions and foster collaborative relationships. Take Sarah, a young entrepreneur in New York City who launched her own sustainable fashion line. Instead of positioning herself as the ultimate authority on eco-friendly practices, she actively seeks mentorship from established designers and environmentalists in the industry. During public discussions, she shares her journey, including her mistakes and the lessons learned along the way. Her openness and willingness to ask questions earn her the respect of peers and customers alike. As a result, her brand gains traction not only for its products but also for its commitment to transparency and ethical practices. Sarah's humble confidence resonates with consumers who appreciate the authenticity behind her brand. Humble confidence also involves recognizing that everyone has something to teach us, regardless of their position or experience level. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it. This perspective encourages us to embrace the idea that we can learn from every interaction, whether it's with a seasoned professional or a newcomer to the field. When you approach others with humility, you create opportunities for growth and development, both for yourself and those around you. The compound effect of embodying humble confidence is profound. People are naturally drawn to those who exude this quality. They see you as approachable, trustworthy, and relatable. In professional settings, this can translate to stronger partnerships, more effective teamwork, and a greater likelihood of collaborative success. In personal relationships, humble confidence fosters deeper connections as individuals feel valued and respected when they interact with someone who genuinely listens and acknowledges their contributions. Moreover, humble confidence cultivates resilience. When you recognize that your worth is not tied to external accolades, you become less vulnerable to the ups and downs of success and failure. You can embrace challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats to your self-esteem. As Seneca wisely noted, a good character, when established, cannot be destroyed. This inner strength allows you to navigate life's challenges with grace, maintaining your integrity and sense of purpose even in difficult times. In summary, humble confidence is a vital quality that enables you to move through life with intention, integrity, and authenticity. By recognizing your strengths while remaining grounded in humility, you create an environment that fosters collaboration, innovation, and trust. Whether in your professional pursuits, personal relationships, or community engagements, embodying humble confidence allows you to make a lasting impact on those around you. This Stoic principle reminds us that true strength lies not in boasting about our achievements, but in lifting others and contributing to the greater good. 9. Thoughtful communication, making every word count. Imagine you're in a conference room in Washington, D.C., where a critical discussion is taking place about a new policy that could affect thousands of citizens. As the debate heats up, various stakeholders express their opinions passionately. Some speak quickly, driven by emotion, while others seem to ramble without making a clear point. Then, a calm voice cuts through the noise. It's a senior policy advisor who has a reputation for thoughtful communication. They begin by summarizing the key points made by others, ensuring everyone feels heard, and then articulate their perspective with clarity and precision. While I understand the concerns about immediate impacts, I believe we should also consider the long-term benefits that this policy could provide for our community. The room quiets and everyone leans in to listen. This advisor's ability to communicate thoughtfully not only clarifies the discussion but also fosters mutual respect and collaboration among the participants. This is the power of thoughtful communication, a skill that can transform conversations and influence outcomes. In Stoic philosophy, the importance of communication is highlighted by Marcus Aurelius, who wrote, "Speak your mind, but be sure to listen." His perspective emphasizes that effective communication involves not just expressing your thoughts, but also engaging with others in a way that fosters understanding and connection. Thoughtful communication is rooted in the Stoic principle of clarity. Epictetus taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. This principle encourages us to approach conversations with a mindset of curiosity and openness, valuing the insights of others instead of dominating discussions with our perspectives. When we listen actively, we create space for deeper understanding and connection, making our words more impactful when we do speak. Consider Laura, a project manager in a tech company in Seattle who leads cross-functional teams. During a recent project kickoff meeting, she noticed that team members from different departments had vastly different perspectives and priorities. Instead of launching into her own agenda, Laura took a step back. She encouraged each team member to share their thoughts, ensuring that everyone had a voice. After gathering insights from the group, she synthesized their ideas into a cohesive plan. When it was her turn to speak, she articulated the strategy in a way that addressed each department's concerns and aspirations. The result? A collaborative spirit was established and team members felt invested in the project's success. Laura's thoughtful communication not only facilitated alignment but also built a foundation of trust that enhanced future collaboration. The Stoic approach to communication emphasizes the importance of intentionality. Seneca, who was known for his eloquence in both speech and writing, advised, "Words must be weighed, not counted." This wisdom reminds us that effective communication is not about the volume of words we use, but their quality and relevance. When we communicate thoughtfully, we consider not only our message but also the impact it will have on our audience. Take Mark, a financial analyst in New York City who is known for his concise yet impactful reports. Instead of overwhelming his clients with jargon and data, he focuses on presenting information in a clear and accessible manner. Mark uses visuals to illustrate key points and takes the time to explain complex concepts in layman's terms. His clients appreciate his ability to distill dense information into actionable insights. As a result, they trust his recommendations and rely on him for guidance. Mark's thoughtful communication style has earned him a reputation as a go-to advisor in his field, demonstrating that clarity and simplicity can foster stronger relationships and influence decision-making. The practice of thoughtful communication also involves what the Stoics referred to as premeditatio bonorum, the visualization of potential positive outcomes from our interactions. By contemplating how our words can inspire, inform, or uplift others, we cultivate a mindset that values constructive dialogue. This perspective encourages us to approach conversations with a commitment to fostering positive relationships rather than merely asserting our viewpoints. Imagine Sarah, a community organizer in Atlanta who works with diverse groups to advocate for social justice. When planning a town hall meeting, she takes the time to reach out to various community members to understand their concerns and aspirations. During the meeting, Sarah carefully frames her questions to encourage open dialogue. How can we work together to address the challenges facing our neighborhood? This approach invites participation and empowers community members to share their perspectives. By fostering an inclusive atmosphere and actively listening, Sarah's thoughtful communication leads to actionable solutions that reflect the community's needs. The Stoic discipline of assent is also crucial in thoughtful communication. This practice involves carefully examining our thoughts and feelings before expressing them. Epictetus emphasized that we should not allow our emotions to dictate our responses. Instead, we should ask ourselves, is this thought true? Is it helpful? Does it align with my values? By pausing to assess our motivations, we ensure that our communication is constructive rather than reactive. Consider Jason, a manager in a large corporation who struggles with giving critical feedback. Instead of responding impulsively when a team member makes a mistake, he takes a moment to reflect on his thoughts and feelings. He acknowledges his frustration but reframes it as an opportunity for growth. When he finally has the conversation, he approaches it with empathy and clarity, focusing on the behavior rather than the person. I noticed that the report had some inaccuracies. Let's review it together so we can ensure the next one meets our standards. By choosing his words thoughtfully, Jason fosters a culture of learning and accountability, ultimately strengthening his team's performance. The compound effect of thoughtful communication is transformative, both personally and professionally. When you consistently practice the skill, people begin to see you as a trusted confidant and a reliable source of insight. Your reputation for thoughtful communication opens doors to new opportunities, whether in your career or personal relationships. Colleagues seek your input during critical discussions, friends turn to you for advice, and clients appreciate your ability to articulate complex ideas clearly. Moreover, thoughtful communication enhances emotional intelligence. By actively listening and engaging with others, you develop a deeper understanding of their perspectives and motivations. This awareness allows you to tailor your responses effectively and navigate challenging conversations with grace. As Marcus Aurelius wisely noted, the best way to avenge yourself is to not be like that. When you commit to thoughtful communication, you transcend conflict and foster understanding, creating a positive impact on those around you. In summary, thoughtful communication is a vital skill that enables you to connect with others meaningfully, influence outcomes, and foster collaboration. By embodying the Stoic principles of clarity, intentionality, and empathy, you create an environment where constructive dialogue thrives. Whether in professional settings, personal relationships, or community engagements, practicing thoughtful communication allows you to make a lasting impact and become a person others remember for your ability to listen, understand, and inspire. 10. Inner freedom, the liberation of self-reliance. Picture yourself scrolling through social media on a Sunday morning in your New York apartment. Your feed is filled with carefully curated images, friends posting about their exotic vacations, colleagues celebrating promotions, acquaintances showcasing their perfect relationships and seemingly flawless lives. You feel a familiar pang of inadequacy creeping in. Why isn't your life as exciting, successful, or picture-perfect as theirs appears to be? But then you pause, take a deep breath, and remember a fundamental truth you've been cultivating. Your worth isn't determined by external comparisons or the approval of others. You close the app, make yourself a cup of coffee, and spend the morning reading a book that genuinely interests you, feeling completely content with your own company and choices. This moment of choosing inner contentment over external validation represents the pinnacle of Stoic wisdom, inner freedom, the liberation that comes from being genuinely self-reliant in the truest sense. Inner freedom in Stoic philosophy is perhaps the most transformative of all principles because it addresses the root of human suffering, our dependence on external circumstances and other people's opinions for our sense of well-being. Epictetus, who understood oppression intimately as a former slave, taught that true freedom has nothing to do with external circumstances and everything to do with the sovereignty of your mind. He wrote, "No one can hurt you without your permission," meaning that while others may control your external conditions, they cannot control your internal response unless you allow them to. This insight is revolutionary because it means that regardless of your situation, whether you're facing financial stress, relationship challenges, or professional setbacks, you retain the ultimate power to choose your mental and emotional state. The concept of inner freedom begins with what Marcus Aurelius called the discipline of desire, learning to find contentment within yourself rather than constantly seeking it from external sources. He reflected in his personal journal, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This wasn't philosophical theory from someone who had everything handed to him. This was hard-won wisdom from a man who faced plagues, wars, political betrayals, and personal losses while carrying the weight of an empire on his shoulders. Consider Maria, a marketing executive in San Diego who spent years climbing the corporate ladder, believing that each promotion would finally bring her the satisfaction and recognition she craved. Despite achieving significant professional success, she found herself constantly anxious about her next career move, comparing herself to peers and feeling empty despite her accomplishments. The turning point came when she realized that her happiness was entirely dependent on external validation, her boss's approval, her colleagues' respect, her industry's recognition. She began practicing inner freedom by developing interests and sources of fulfillment that had nothing to do with her professional identity. She started painting, volunteering at a local animal shelter, and cultivating friendships based on genuine connection rather than networking opportunities. This shift didn't diminish her professional performance, instead it enhanced it. When she stopped desperately seeking approval, she became more creative, took calculated risks, and paradoxically became more respected by her peers. Her inner freedom transformed her from someone who was driven by external pressures into someone who was guided by internal purpose. Seneca provided practical guidance for developing inner freedom through what he called the practice of voluntary discomfort. He would periodically live as if he were poor, eating simple food and wearing basic clothing, not out of asceticism but to prove to himself that his happiness didn't depend on luxury or comfort. He wrote, "It is likely that some troubles will befall us, but it is not a present fact. How often has the unexpected happened? How often has the expected never come to pass?" This practice builds inner freedom by demonstrating that you can be content regardless of external circumstances. Take David, a software engineer in Austin who was laid off during a tech industry downturn. Instead of panicking or immediately jumping into a frantic job search, he used the opportunity to practice inner freedom. He had been living below his means and had savings, so he decided to take 3 months to reassess his career goals and personal priorities. During this time, he volunteered with local nonprofits, learned new programming languages, and spent quality time with family and friends. Rather than feeling ashamed about being unemployed, he embraced the period as a chance for growth and reflection. When he did return to the job market, he was more selective about opportunities, ultimately accepting a position that aligned better with his values and offered better work-life balance. His practice of inner freedom during a challenging period led to better long-term outcomes than reactive job searching would have provided. The Stoic understanding of inner freedom also involves what they called preferred indifference, recognizing that while some external things are naturally preferable, health over sickness, wealth over poverty, they are not essential for your fundamental well-being. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Adapt yourself to the life you've been given, but love the people with whom you share it." This perspective allows you to appreciate good fortune when it comes while maintaining equanimity when it doesn't. Consider Jennifer, a freelance graphic designer in Portland who built her sense of self-worth around client approval and project success. When a major client unexpectedly terminated their contract, she initially felt devastated and questioned her professional abilities. However, through practicing inner freedom, she learned to separate her identity from her work outcomes. She began viewing client feedback as information rather than judgment, seeing project failures as learning opportunities rather than personal failures. This shift in perspective made her more resilient and paradoxically more successful as clients were drawn to her calm confidence and ability to handle challenges gracefully. The practice of inner freedom requires daily cultivation through what Seneca called the evening review, regularly examining your thoughts, reactions, and dependencies to identify areas where you're giving away your mental sovereignty to external circumstances. Ask yourself, what disturbed my peace today? Was it something within my control or outside my control? How can I respond differently next time? The compound effect of developing inner freedom is extraordinary. People are naturally drawn to those who possess genuine self-confidence that doesn't depend on external validation. You become someone others can rely on because your emotional state isn't constantly fluctuating based on circumstances. In professional settings, this translates to better decision-making, stronger leadership, and increased respect from colleagues. In personal relationships, it means you can love others without neediness, support friends without expecting reciprocation, and maintain your sense of self regardless of how others treat you. Moreover, inner freedom creates space for genuine generosity and service. When you're not constantly seeking approval or trying to fill internal voids through external means, your energy becomes available for contributing to others' well-being. You can give without keeping score, help without expecting recognition, and love without conditions. Becoming unforgettable, your Stoic transformation. As we conclude our journey through the 10 transformative Stoic skills, it's essential to reflect on the profound impact that these principles can have on your life and the lives of those around you. Each skill we've explored, from mastering self-control and rational decision-making to cultivating emotional regulation and humble confidence, serves as a building block for living a life of purpose and integrity. Together, these qualities create a unique presence that not only makes you memorable but also inspires others to elevate their own lives. Think back to the stories we shared: the marketing director who fostered collaboration through self-control, the software engineer who embraced change with inner freedom, and the community organizer who communicated thoughtfully to empower her neighborhood. These individuals didn't just navigate their challenges, they transformed them into opportunities for growth, connection, and lasting impact. Their stories exemplify the Stoic ideal that our responses to life's difficulties define who we are and how we are remembered. Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts." By adopting these Stoic skills, you consciously choose to cultivate a mindset that is resilient, purposeful, and grounded in your values. Each time you practice self-control in the face of adversity or communicate thoughtfully with empathy, you strengthen your character and build a legacy that others will admire. As you move forward, remember that becoming unforgettable is not about seeking attention or validation. It's about living authentically and making a positive impact on those around you. Reflect on the values that matter most to you and consider how you can integrate the Stoic principles we've discussed into your daily life. Whether it's taking time for self-reflection, actively listening to others, or responding to challenges with grace, each small action contributes to your journey toward becoming the person you aspire to be. Now is the time to take these insights and put them into practice. Challenge yourself to focus on one Stoic skill each week. Notice how these changes affect your interactions, your emotional state, and your overall sense of fulfillment. Commit to living with intention and embodying the qualities that make you uniquely unforgettable. If you found value in this content and want to deepen your understanding of Stoic philosophy, we invite you to subscribe to the Stoic Viva channel. By joining our community, you'll gain access to a wealth of resources, insights, and discussions that will help you navigate modern life with the wisdom of the ancients. Don't forget to like and share this video with friends and family who could benefit from these teachings. Together, let's spread the transformative power of Stoic philosophy and empower more people to live with purpose, resilience, and authenticity. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember, the path to becoming unforgettable begins within you. Embrace your inner Stoic and let your actions reflect the wisdom you've gained. Here's to your transformation.